We're going to look at a few of the different theories regarding the missing Malaysia Airlines flight 370, and the possibilities tonight. We started, what about terrorism, real terrorism? And we want to look into that with our national security correspondent for The Blaze, Buck Sexton, who has a terrorist group that I haven't heard of since, I think, the president released a bunch of these guys out of Guantanamo right out of the chute. And I had never heard of them and found out, no, they're really nasty terrorists called the Uyghurs. Buck, how are you?
Good, Glenn.
Tell me about them.
So the Uyghurs are just an ethnic group. They're a Turkic-speaking group that lives in what is southwestern China, mostly in Xinjiang province is what we're referring to when we talk about the Uyghur separatist movement, because they don't want to be a part of China proper. And so there's a terrorist group that operates there. It actually has ties into Pakistan as well, called the East Turkestan Liberation Movement, or the East Turkestan Islamist Movement, depending on which day it is we're talking about it. And they have in the past engaged in some pretty nasty attacks, including just a couple of weeks ago at a train station. They had this mass knifing attack. I believe it killed 29 people, wounded over 100, very bloody, a horrific mess. And that was part of the East Turkestan Islamist movement's MO. That's what they did there. They've also, though, attacked aviation in the past. Now, in 2008, they had a woman who tried to sneak an explosive device onto a flight bound for Beijing. So there we have something lining up. And also in 2012, a number of Uyghur terrorists decided to try to rush the cockpit with what I believe were sharpened crutches. That was also an unsuccessful attempt. So they've been bumbling in the past, but because of who we're talking...
Can I ask you something? I mean, don't get me wrong. The sharpened crutches, that's a good plan. But this one seems to be a little more sophisticated, assuming that, assuming that they didn't just all fall into the, into the drink.
If we are in the realm of terrorism, and Glenn, I always say that when analyzing the Middle East, the smartest people I know on this have always said you have to leave room for crazy. I think that that is a very useful maxim in this context, because I think that the possibility that the pilots or somebody on board essentially lost it and buried this thing in the ocean somewhere is pretty high. But if we're in the realm of terrorism, we have to be clear about who the target set is here. You have to look at why they would attack this plane. Malaysia is a majority Muslim country. A majority, or at least a lot of the passengers, I should say, on this plane are Muslims. They're also individuals heading for Beijing, Chinese nationals, not usually high on the target set for al-Qaeda and other jihadist groups around the world. However, the Muslim ethnic Uyghur terrorist groups that have operated in China would probably love to get a shot, as they have in the past, taken not very well, love to get a shot at a plane bound for Beijing. So if it is terrorism, that makes some sense. Not a lot, though.
All right, let me just begin. I know we're dealing with the sharpened crutches people, but how bad do you have to be gone for a week and everybody's like, oh crap, we didn't leave a note? I mean they always leave videos. If they would have taken this, wouldn't the Uyghurs been like, hey, we did it at some point?
Well, then there's always the possibility of something that we've seen here in this country as well. And I'm going pretty far down the rabbit hole here, but as the administration says, all options are on the table. So we can't cut anything out at this point in time. You could have a lone wolf radicalization scenario. We know there was at least one ethnic Uyghur on the flight.
So do you believe that? Wait. Finish that sentence. There is one known Uyghur guy on the plane.
Yes, sir.
Okay. So do you buy into this? Is this is the Buck Sexton theory?
I wouldn't call it the Buck Sexton theory. I'd say it's one of several theories. If I was forced right now, and I feel like to some degree I am, I've got to tell you what I think here.
I've got a gun to your head right now. And yes, America, teachers all across America are freaking out. I actually have a gun, and it's a supersonic gun. It will shoot all the way to our New York newsroom from Dallas. Go ahead.
It'll send a freedom hug all the way up here. No, Glenn, the highest likelihood here, I think, is that it involves the pilots and the plane crashed somewhere, and tragically, I think everybody on board lost their lives. But if we're going to look at terrorism, it has to make some sense from the perspective of a terrorist, and this has to be directed at either the Malaysian government or China, based upon the passenger manifest, really. And so then you cut out a lot of options there. You cut out the majority of jihadist networks operating around the world, most likely. But again, we're working with information that not only do we find out we don't have enough of it, but the information we have keeps
wrong.
getting, so it's wrong, it's false.
So, all right, so one last thing. Today was a big day in the Buck Sexton world. Look at how nonchalant he is. Well, I was a CIA agent, of course. I got my own daily radio program on the Blaze, following that super just tremendous dynamo, Glenn Beck. And you're on the Blaze beginning at noon Eastern. You started that today. How did the first show go?
It was great. It was so much fun. A lot of the Team Buck folks showed up. A lot of folks stayed over after listening to your show, which I really appreciate, and I'm hoping we just get more and more folks will give the time, 12 to 2 Eastern, Monday through Friday, to come check out what I'm doing there. Today, a lot of national security. Other times, we'll do whatever the news cycle brings us. Okay, thanks a lot, Buck. I appreciate it. Thank you, Glenn. I do want to tell you on a personal note, Buck Sexton is a remarkable man, a remarkable brain. We are honored, I am honored to have him work here. And I think in my career, he is the first real star in the making, and it has nothing to do with his electric personality, which is shockingly entertaining. He is a hardworking, decent, and very smart man. We are honored to start his radio program on the Blaze Radio Network. We started it today. Don't miss it tomorrow. Back in a minute.